안녕하세요. 림베시 Singapore 남자입니다. 네, 안녕하세요 여러분들. Here I am in a charming Turkish restaurant. Food just came here in Istanbul. Taking this lunch time just to share with you guys my personal experience as a very long time of overseas Singaporean. So basically I've lived away from Singapore for about 18 years and spent 10 years in China, 5 years in Korea, half a year in Japan, 2 years in New York, and about 1 year here in Turkey right now, right? So yeah, I've been away for a very, very long time. And yeah, being an overseas Singaporean, first, what does it mean to be an overseas Singaporean? Okay, there's no measure of when you become an overseas Singaporean, you know, like, does working overseas make you an overseas Singaporean or what? But to me, like, for personally, my own standard is this: the moment you drop your Singapore mobile phone number, that's when you really become an overseas Singaporean. Okay. Well, anyways, so what are the good, the bad, and the ugly things about being an overseas Singaporean, right? I think first of all, let's talk about some of the good things. There's a lot of good things that come to being an overseas Singaporean, because you really do feel much more Singaporean and much more respected as a Singaporean, you know, out when you're overseas Singaporean. In some countries where the ministers and people visit very regularly, they meet up, like cabinet ministers and ministers whom you never get to talk to face when you are just a nobody in Singapore. They suddenly visit you in the country that you're in. They always come to the country and meet up with the overseas Singaporeans and have face-to-face talks all the time. So I met everybody from cabinet ministers to ministers, and in fact, you know, my biggest honor was I met with Lee Kuan Yew on his final trip to China. Okay, before he died, I think a year before he died, and I actually got to talk to him face to face. This is something I would never have been able to do if I'm just somebody in Singapore. You know, like, ironically, Singaporeans in Singapore should get all these opportunities, but you only start getting them when you leave Singapore. And then the next thing is, of course, National Day. You know, in Singapore, like, National Day, you have to queue for, you have to ballot for a ticket and everything just to go for NDP. But when you're overseas Singaporean, the embassy in that country usually holds big celebrations for free for all Singaporeans. So you get all the Singaporean food, cake, fun, beer, everything for free, and then you get to watch the live broadcast of the parade and everything. And basically, the whole environment, whole atmosphere makes you feel a lot more Singaporean than you would if you are just living in Singapore. So there's a lot of this kind of perks go when you're actually an overseas Singaporean, you know. Of course, now we talk about the bad thing. Now the bad thing is this. The bad thing is mainly survival. Now, surviving overseas is not easy, but specifically being a Singaporean, there is one thing that really stands out, is this: if you're a Korean or a Japanese or you're American and you live overseas and you lose your job, you can always default to your most convenient money-making method, which is teaching your language. Koreans will teach Korean language, Japanese teach Japanese, and they usually can make a good living out of doing that, you know. But as a Singaporean, you don't have this choice. You're not recognized as native English speakers and pretty much anywhere. And you know what? You're not even recognized as native Chinese speakers. In fact, would you dare to teach Chinese if you're given a chance? I wouldn't dare. Like, most of us can't even write a single sentence in Chinese. So what the hell, right? So I think that is the bad thing about being, of course, like, there are a lot more different challenges about living long term overseas. But I'm just trying to highlight something that is specifically very Singaporean, okay? Which is actually, to me, this thing is quite a big thing. when you are trying to survive overseas and you lose your job or shit happen. Yeah, so most of you may say, then when that happens, go home now, or go home to Singapore. Yeah, you can do that, but if you did that, then you will never end up with the experience that I have. 18 years of living overseas and experiencing everything that I have and that you guys have seen through my channel. You know, I wouldn't have this experience, I wouldn't have this life, right? So it's really give and take, okay? And the good thing is that you really learn to survive under such situations. You know, life is not always rosy for me out here, my friends. You guys may think that my life is always like that. Yeah, you see there, Louis, he's got the money, that's why he's living. No, I've been up there, down there, up there, down there, and I've been down there hard many times. Okay, I have invested heavily and failed in quite a few business ventures in Korea and in China. Okay, and each time I need to find the strength to pick myself up rather than crawl back home. Alright, so it's not easy. Okay, so well, the ugly thing about being overseas Singaporean is, to me, is this: because Singaporeans, we tend to integrate wherever we go to. That's why wherever you go to, you don't find strong Singaporean community or Singapore towns. You know, like you always find a Chinatown or a Korean town, pretty much every major city in the world. But you were never gonna find a Singapore town, you know, because Singaporeans, we are very culturally flexible and we pretty much just integrate. As you guys seen over the past 7 and 8 years, I've completely integrated into the Korean culture, and in fact, every day I speak more Korean than I speak English, right? So, and if you follow my Instagram, you see I pretty much eat Korean food. When I make food at home, it's all Korean. So. I think that's the ugly thing. You slowly adapt and integrate into another culture, and you suddenly, when you go back to Singapore after an extended period of time, you become pretty much like a stranger or foreigner in your own country. And I think that's the ugly thing. Yeah. So yeah, that's in a nutshell what it feels like to be an overseas Singaporean. Okay, how about you guys? Share your experience with me in the comments below, and in future channels I'll share more about the ins and outs and stuff like that of being an overseas Singaporean, since more and more Singaporeans are looking to venture outside of the country, right? So yeah, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. 안녕.